boils and ghouls. It's your old pal, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And guess what, kiddies? You are now tuned in to PVD Horror Podcast. Pleasant screams.
Hey, what's going on? You're now tuned in to the PVD Horror Podcast. I'm Brandon, and today I'm joined by editor, producer, and director Patrick Lawrence to talk about the new project, Shelby Oaks, which is set to hit theaters October 24th. Patrick, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Brandon.
No problem. So now, man, Patrick, you have edited over like 23 feature films such as Scare Me, Dreamboat. What first drew you into editing as a career, and how did you break into the industry?
Thank you. Yeah, I like most people wanted to be a director. My father had gotten me into like music and movies and all the things that he loved. And when I was getting ready to go to college, I wanted to be in a band, but then didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life in terms of like getting a degree, and started thinking about, maybe like filmmaking could be a serious path. And so I started taking film courses and then got to college. And, I was sort of I was surrounded by a lot of creative people.
Okay.
And it's really hard to feel like you have a unique voice around highly creative people. And so I got really down on myself as like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I'm a good writer. And so I started taking a film editing course the same semester I was taking a video editing course. So one day I would be shooting on 8mm film and then editing on a Steamback. And then the next day I'd have a 4-hour course where we were going out and shooting things on DV tape and then coming in an hour later and editing it in real time. And I could see the difference between like having to wait 2 to 3 weeks to get your film processed and shipped back to you just to find out that it was all too dark and you can't use it, versus doing it instantaneously and then like making decisions on the fly and having something done within an hour. And today that's old hat, but like this was 2003, 2004, like digital filmmaking was just new and like the technology was new. And so I had this feeling that it was like, if I can't be a director, being an editor feels like I can direct the edit or essentially, you're directing the final version of a film. And it was such like a naive thing to think, but like it is 1,000% true that like that is what you do. And I've been in a lot of situations where like I've had to make calls that the director didn't know to do or like didn't think to do. And so that was really what set me off on the journey. And then like I said, I was a musician and so I left school for a couple of years to focus on being in a band, and I made a lot of music connections, and that allowed me to start making music videos and start meeting people in the film industry. And I really started positioning myself as a director editor, and then moved out to LA in 2015 and essentially had to start fresh. Had to make all new people. But I knew that this was what I wanted to do because I wasn't able to like reach the level that I wanted to, back home from St. Louis, where I'm from originally. Like that, I wasn't able to do that. So, so I came out here and met, a lot of comedic directors, and worked on a couple short films. And in less than a year, I had 2 films in Sundance. And then since then, I've now had 7 films in Sundance, and working in comedy turned into working into dark comedies, then turned into horror comedies, and then turned into horror. so I've gone. That's been my entire arc over the last 10 years since living in LA.
Oh, okay. Also, congratulations, like you said, your music background. You just released a track today, called Crimes.
I did, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, man, checked out your band. Some good shit you got going on over there. How long have you guys been together?
Well, we've been Emilio, my partner Emilio, and I. We have been together since 2001 in our
Okay.
previous band, but we decided during the pandemic that, it'd be fun to make music that like the music that we always wanted to make, like when we were teenagers and,
Yeah.
we wanted to sound like The Cure, Depeche Mode, but we weren't talented enough to actually do it. So now 20 years later, we actually like have the knowledge and the technology to like actually make the stuff that we want. And that's how it started. And it's been an incredible journey on that side of things too, because I started putting time and energy into that as an outlet from the film world.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, especially as an editor, it can feel very unfulfilling because we are invisible artists.
Yeah.
There are people that believe that when you watch a movie that you shouldn't see the editing, you shouldn't recognize it, and therefore it shouldn't be acknowledged. And that's a hard thing to deal with, especially when, you know, I consider myself an expert problem solver. And when you're solving problems that are saving movies and then you don't get the thanks or the recognition for it, it,
Yeah.
it can be kind of thankless. And so the outlet with the music was something that really kind of fueled my creative energy. And it has been successful to a certain degree, like more successful than we ever were with our old band. And we've now toured coast to coast and played with some major bands, and we've played everywhere from LA to New Jersey, and we released a album on vinyl last year, which we
Yeah.
couldn't imagine doing before, and we've got fans worldwide. I mean, our second highest fan base outside of the United States is in Germany, and we sell merch constantly there. So it's just that's a whole nother thing. The band's called the Cults, by the way. I
Yeah.
forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
But thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
No problem, man. Yeah. And then, like you said, coming from St. Louis to LA, what challenges did you face, establishing yourself as a worker and editor? I mean, how was it was it challenging for you or no?
Yeah, because back home, I didn't have to look for work. I'd
Hmm.
kind of gotten myself in a position where I was on call between two production companies. And so whenever things came up, I got the call. And so I would be doing things for like, there was a summer where I was cutting a feature film and then directing music videos and then doing a commercial and then,
Yeah.
short films for student filmmakers. And so I never had to look for work. And then coming out to LA, it was like hitting Craigslist,
Yeah.
trying, and picking up little things here and there that would like at least maybe pay the rent. And the thing that really broke for me was my roommate was shooting a short film, and he needed some help, and I was available, and I came out, and for 2 days we shot this short film. And at the end of it, I gave the producer my business card and said, I'm actually an editor if you need somebody to cut this. And they had somebody already, but a couple months later, they weren't happy with the cut, and she reached out, and I watched it and knew exactly what to do to fix it,
Hmm.
and then spent a couple days polishing it up and sent it back, and they loved it. And then 3 months later, it got in the Sundance.
Oh,
And
that's
that was sort of like, that was just so mind blowing to me that like
yeah.
this jump that I had made in less than a year, like I'd worked on dozens of short films already by this time.
Hmm.
And like, just that like two of the three I worked on in LA got into Sundance like that. It was almost unbelievable.
Hmm.
And it doesn't always, unfortunately, it doesn't always work out like that. But it was something that was like, okay, I made the right decision by moving out here.
Yeah. And that's the thing, going into making decisions like that in the moment and then just having a big payoff. That's what it's all about, man. And then
Yeah.
like for you having to move to LA from St. Louis and, not being able to see your Blues play all the time, and
That's
having to be around
right.
LA Kings fans. How's that been for you?
Now, I mean, when we won the Stanley Cup in 2019, I had to watch the parade from my TV in Silver Lake, and I was depressed.
Oh, okay. It's
So
funny.
yeah, it's a trade-off for
Yeah.
sure.
Say I'm from Rhode Island, so close to Boston. So we have the Bruins and stuff down here. But I'm never really a home fan guy anyway. But hockey, I'm always kind of like I just like to watch the sport. You know what I mean?
I was just in Boston a month ago now for the My
Okay.
Chemical Romance show at Fenway Park.
Oh, nice. My wife had gone down for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was a great show. We caught them here, and then we decided to go to Boston because we wanted to go to Salem as well. So we
Okay.
did a weekend
Cool.
out.
Adobe, man. I love using Adobe, creating content. How has Adobe played a role in your career?
Um, you know, I I try to I try to learn as much as I can because I think that like the technology is ever evolving
Hmm.
and you have to learn how to use everything in your tool set. And when I got started, I was like a Final Cut 7 guy, and then that became obsolete. And Premiere was the first one to come out and say like professional editors come use us. We've got the same keystrokes, we got all the things, and so I thrust myself into that and learned it pretty quickly. And then when I started kind of moving up in the professional world, it became clear that like Avid is king. And so I had to learn Avid and struggled with it for a long time. But what I did was I made sure that I was sort of like ambidextrous between the
Hmm.
two because you never know. And especially now, 15 years later, it's like every production has a different, you know, uh, different setup that they want you to have. Some are sticklers about Avids. Some of them, maybe the director is more familiar with Premiere and like that's what they want to use. So it's good to be able to bounce back and forth. And there are days where I'm literally doing one thing on Premiere and then, oh, I got notes on something, jump into Avid and have to do that. And but Premiere is sort of my go-to, and I don't like people talking trash about it because I can throw it right back at you. and so I will defend it to my dying day. And I think that like they are, leaps and bounds ahead in terms of like the AI technology and how we as creatives can use AI in a good way and use it as part of our
Hmm.
tool set. And that was something that like they turned on to me early in 2023. And I spent 2 months really just like learning the ins and outs of how I could be using AI in my edit. And it's completely changed the way I work as well. So um, I'm a big supporter when it comes to Premiere.
Now, you were talking about your short film earlier. Was that the Ghostbusters South Side short
Yeah,
film that you were talking about? Okay. Yeah, I was able to check the trailer out for that you made, and I was just like, oh man, I could watch this. You know what I mean? A
yeah.
full length film. So you're a big Ghostbusters fan, right? And so
Yeah, it's dark in here, so you can't see all the stuff here in the ghost cave. But
oh,
yeah, there's
okay.
a lot of stuff.
So you have like the largest collection in Southern California, I hear.
I would say I've got one of them. I probably don't have the largest because somebody's probably got an Ecto one, and I don't have that. But
No,
I do
okay.
have a pretty massive collection here. But yeah, no, that was a dream project where some friends of mine had an idea for a TV series, and this was right before the Afterlife movie came out, or right
Okay.
before. I'm sorry, right before Afterlife came out, and so they wanted to pitch a TV series to Sony, and I read the script and thought it was fun, but I thought that it didn't actually quite fit the Ghostbusters universe. And so I offered to lend my services to like do a pass on it and direct it, and they loved the idea, and we ran with it and we made it, and I put a lot of like love and attention into it, making it feel as authentically Ghostbusters as possible. And we got it over to the people at Sony, and they loved it so much that they put together a screening for us of
Okay.
Afterlife weeks before it came out,
Nice.
and so that all of that was like super rewarding, and I'm like, if I never direct ever again, I'm perfectly fine with that because I feel like when I watch it, not only is it like I'll never direct a Ghostbusters movie. I know that, but like
Mhm.
I watch it and I'm just like, yeah, man. Like if you'd shown this to me when I was 5 years old, my head would have exploded.
You might not direct one, but maybe you could edit one. You know what I
I
mean? So,
I would love to.
see? You never know, man. Don't count
Ghost
yourself
Corps, if
out.
you're listening, I've actually gone to Ghost Corps and like sat in the offices and like
Okay.
really like, but they were working on the Saturday Night Live movie at the time, so it was hard to like,
Yeah.
like, hey guys, so I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe someday.
There we go. Now, Patrick, let's talk about Shelby Oaks. You know,
Yeah,
this was a great film. It's set to release in theaters October 24th. I was able to check it out at Fantastic Fest. I have to say, this was a wild ride.
cool.
And you have a story actually that you can probably share because Fantastic Fest was actually the birthplace of this project. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about that and how it all came together?
Yeah, it's great. The director Chris Stuckmann, he had this idea with his wife Sam Liz, and they were kicking it around for a couple of years, and he was at Fantastic Fest in 2019 and built up the courage, go up to talk to producer Aaron Kuntz, and said, I've got an idea for a movie that, it's a found footage movie, but what happens when somebody just puts the fucking camera down?
No.
And Aaron was like, let's do it. And that was sort of the beginning of it. Happened right there at Fantastic. And then a couple years later, I was at my first Fantastic Fest with the movie Blood Relatives.
Okay.
And Chris and I had just started working on Shelby Oaks. And so he and I were there together, seeing movies together, getting to know each other, and just talking about how much we wanted the movie to premiere there. And so that was always in the back of our mind, and that was our goal. We thought for sure. And then 2023, we'd finished the movie, and the strikes were going on, and we missed the deadline, and we just thought it's not going to happen. And then Neon swooped in and bought the movie, and out of nowhere, there was this message that came through saying we got in the Fantastic Fest, and it was I could cry. Like I just thought like this is a full circle moment.
Yeah.
And so being there, the 2 weeks ago, it just felt like all of this was meant to be. Like it was all set in motion years ago, and this was the result of it all. The whole story of Shelby Oaks is really an incredible story of just like shit like this does not happen in the film industry.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. And like to have an idea, and Chris was willing to make this movie for a couple $100,000, $200,000, whatever it was, put it out on YouTube, and there was an opportunity to do a Kickstarter, and it turned into $1.4 million in Kickstarter funding. I'm sure you saw the poster that was just released with all the names of the 14,720 backers.
Yep.
And it's the highest funded film in Kickstarter history. And
That's
then
awesome.
to come out of that, and then you have the best distributor currently in Hollywood buy it and then want to release it. It's just insane.
Yeah. It's just been a wild ride because like you said, I had gone down to like San Diego Comic-Con, a month ago, 2 months ago. And I had seen Chris, on the stage with everybody from Neon, talking about the film and everything like that. And so seeing where Chris came from as like a reviewer to, as a director and filmmaker and doing all this stuff, it's just been a wild ride. And it kind of just shows, everyone that like, if you have a dream, like you could put it together. And just like creating your films and, editing and directing, like it all comes together, but you just got to keep on believing in it, like your whole process. So I just want to say congratulations to you guys as a full team because, like you said, like the love of the, fans and everybody backing you. This is what it's all about in the horror community and every filmmaker's aspect of putting stuff together.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, anybody listening, I mean, it's really hard sometimes when you're not seeing the results from things you want, but, the more you stick with it, and there's this weird sort of like secret sauce that I haven't quite figured out, and when I was mentioning my band before, it kind of happened with that, where it's like you have to push just enough and then let it sit to like get rewarded for the things, because we all know people that are like doing too much. And it's like, and yet nothing happens for them, even though they're like hustle, hustle, hustle. And then there are those people that like don't get off the couch and just expect everything to come to them, and nothing happens either. So it's like there's this place sort of like right of center where like if you just do enough and just let the universe bring it back to you, you get rewarded for it. And I've seen that happen, with my band, and I've seen it with my filming projects, and like, and it's almost like between the two, when I'm not paying attention to one, that's when the other one starts doing things and saying, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. And I feel like with Shelby, it was like that. It was like we made the movie and then we had to sit on it for a year just thinking what's going to happen with this, and how is it going to get released? And then all of a sudden this, mega situation with Neon happens, and it changed everything.
Yep. Now, overall, you're big on collaboration. And like you said, the whole idea of Chris and his wife putting this together and, going to Fantastic Fest. How was it for you working with Chris, and having Mike Flanagan, on this project? How did the collaboration all come together when it was time to like create, like edit the film and then go through everything? Like you said before, you saved the project. Was Chris okay with like your calls and like your style and the things that you wanted to add to the project?
Yeah, no, there were, when we got started on the movie, I do my thing, which is like, I take my time to do the assembly cut on the film, and that could take anywhere from like 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
And Chris already had the footage, and he's a night person, and so he was actually like noodling with the movie for months prior to me coming on.
Okay.
And so he told me, he's like, I don't know if they told you this, but I actually have a cut of the movie. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. And like that's something that like never happened to me before. And I was like, well, I'm gonna sit with it and I'm gonna do my own thing, and then maybe we can come together on it. And when I finished my first cut, I sent it to him, and there was a scene. There was a scene in particular that he was really unhappy with, that he thought he was going to have to reshoot, and he saw my cut and he was like, "You figured it out, like you saved it." Like, and that was, for me, it was like such a rewarding moment, because like you don't get that all the time, but also that helped set the relationship between me and Chris, because as a first time filmmaker, I hope that he learned that he could trust me in that moment. And that, I was going to bring a fresh set of eyes to what he had already been looking at, and like fresh perspective, and also the experience of having cut, at that point, I don't know, 17, 18 feature films, like, how I can take all that knowledge and apply it to his story. And then the great thing about Chris is that he is a very talented editor himself, and he's been editing his own little short films and things for years. And so there were things that he would send to me, and he would say like, I love what you did here, but like, check out what I did. And usually, as you can ask any editor, when a director says, look at what I did, it's like, oh my, your eyes roll into the back of your head.
Yeah.
But Chris would send his stuff over, and I would say, yeah, that cooks.
Okay.
So I'm gonna take what you did, and I think he was using Final Cut. And so I was like, I'm going to take what you did, and then I'm going to recreate it in Avid, and then do a couple things that I think it needs, and then kind of meet in the middle. And that was the collaboration that we had together on parts of the movie. And then when it came to Mike, Mike, I cannot like stress, like when you're in the room with somebody of that caliber, you just like shut up and listen.
Yep.
And so Mike did this thing that nobody else, I've never seen anybody else do in the room, that I've really taken with me, which is he will suggest an idea but acknowledge that like this is your movie. And so he would say to us, like, he's like, you don't have to do this. Hear me out. You don't have to do this. It's your movie. And he would say, what if you cut from here all the way to here and just remove all of that?
Yeah.
And so, you know, and for that particular situation, you know, I think we were like at maybe we were like an hour 45 or an hour 50, and like we really wanted it to be around that like that hour 40 mark, that 100-minute mark is what we were aiming for originally with the movie. And so we were trying to figure out how to cut 10, 15 minutes out of the movie and get it down. And so Mike had these ideas where he would say, like, hear me out, like, go from here to here and just see what happens. And that's a big chunk of movie. That's 5-6 minutes of the movie. And that you think is so important to telling the story of the film. And so Chris and I would just look at each other and go, okay, Mike Flanagan, delete, and watch it and go, yeah, man, that's why you're Mike Flanagan. Like you get it. And then the other thing that Mike really taught both of us was the art of getting in late and getting out early. You know, looking at a scene and just cutting to the core of what that scene is about. Because a lot of times, you know, you look at a scene, you think you need all the bells and whistles on it. And if you don't have that outside perspective, it's hard to view the scene that way. So Mike taught both of us that, you know, it's like just when you're looking at a scene that like maybe feels like it's too long, but you don't know where to cut from, it's like just get to the core of it. Yep. Just get in late and get the hell out early. Like that's it. And that was game changing for sure.
Yeah, it was cool.
And then I also want to give a special shout out to my co-editor on the project, Brett Bachman, who works closely with Mike. And what Brett was tasked with was coming in and trying to figure out a way to condense the story even further and maintain the tension throughout. So, you know, the version that you saw at Fantastic Fest, basically like once it gets going, it doesn't stop until the very end. Yeah. And that's Brett. Like that's Brett's genius, is figuring out how to keep those threads intertwined and like make sure that tension never lets up as it's going. And that is a huge accomplishment.
Oh, definitely it was, because like I said, just being in the audience and watching that film, like it just takes you on a wild ride. You don't even know what's going to come next. There's so many twists and turns, man. And I just have to say, you guys did like such a great job piecing everything together and doing that, you know, because going into the film, like you have expectations from what you see from the trailer, but then when you go in, you're just like, your mind's blown. Like it's a whole new thing. It's like, wow, like congratulations, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely, you know, it's a big group of people, everybody around, from the producers to the cinematographer, Andrew Baird, to the composer, James Burkholder, like everybody involved, like made this movie what it is. It's a huge collaborative effort on top of what Chris brought originally.
Yep. And now usually, you know, because with your music background, your influence, rhythm and pacing and editing, how did that come together on this project for you?
Yeah, this one was different because it was a slower film. You know, I'd been doing several horror comedies previous to this. I did Scare Me, and then Who Invited Them, and then Blood Relatives. And so those all had different rhythms to it. In Shelby, there's no jokes. I mean, there's some like moments of levity, but there's no like intentional haha moments. And so up until this point, my experience in the horror world was trying to find those rhythms where it's like you can make somebody laugh and also make them scared at the same time. Or you have that tension that you have to portray. So with Shelby, the rhythms were completely different, where it's a lot of just like holding shots and maintaining silence, because I'm a firm believer in being comfortable in the silence. You know, a lot of people in the film world will say like faster, faster, faster. And I don't subscribe to that.
No.
And so, you know, how long do we sit in a shot for uncomfortably to make people wonder, like, what's about to jump out of the woods? Or, you know, is there something standing behind her? And there was also a big theme from Chris that was he wanted the movie to feel like Dread. And so I think in order to achieve that, you have to understand where Mia, the main character, is going and where she ends up. And then you have to work backwards from there to make sure that, like, you understand that her journey is all leading up to this ending.
Yeah.
and what is so dreadful about that, or the idea that maybe her sister is dead and she's never going to find her, and the dread that comes with that as well, or what's looking in the window, that sort of dictated what the rhythms of the cut would be like.
Yeah. Like I said, you know, congratulations on this project. Like I said, for everybody listening, this comes out October 24th. You better go out and check this out on the big screen. But Patrick, I need to know, like, you know, besides Shelby Oaks, what are some future projects that you're working on now? You know, you have some other stuff coming out because, like, we dropped the single. When are we going to expect the album? Yeah. What do you got going on?
Yeah. With the Cults, we're in the midst of writing a new album right now, which the new single is from, and so that will probably maybe sometime in 2026, I guess.
Okay.
We'll see when that happens. But in terms of film projects, yeah, I've been kind of bouncing around genre-wise lately since Shelby Oaks, because since the strikes happened, you know, jobs were kind of few and far between. So I went back to doing a little bit more comedy stuff for a while. I did a really cool sci-fi horror comedy called Cognitive that is just premiered at Fright Fest UK. And that does not have distribution yet, but that's one that I'm really excited about because it's kind of like a 90s hacker sort of vibe, but set. I would describe it best as like Alien in an office building, but with an AI.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a lot of fun to do. That's directed by this guy, Tommy Savas, who I had an absolute blast with. And then I just did a movie this past summer that's a little bit more of an indie drama called Ugly Cry, but it's kind of substance adjacent, I should say. But yeah, no, my other big project that came out this year was Screamboat, the Steamboat Willie movie.
Yep.
And so I've been sort of riding that wave as well, heading into Shelby Oaks.
Okay. Yeah, we actually had the creator from Cognitive come on the podcast and we talked about that. So like looking back at that film and knowing you were part of that, that's awesome, man. Like, because I can't wait for everybody to check that out too when it comes out. So
Thank you.
because we loved it. Can you tell the listeners where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, I'm everywhere at Patrick Lawrence with all the vowels removed. So PTRCKLWRNCE at the end. That's pretty much where you can find me and see what I'm up to. And yeah, hopefully everybody gets to see Shelby Oaks on October 24th and enjoys it. See some creepy shit.
Yeah. Patrick, thank you so much for coming on the show. For everybody listening, we'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, take it easy.
Game over.